today we want to talk to you about some of the good, the bad, and the weird of living in Japan. So first of all, we want to say thanks for watching for starters, and please hit the comments up with any questions that you have. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, and enjoy our journey as much as we are.
Yeah, now that we've been here for about 4 months, we're experts. So if you've got any questions, let us know and we'll do what we can to answer them. We might even make a whole video on it if we can.
We are certainly experts at winging it and hoping for the best.
Yes.
And that's something that we have really learned how to do. We have just learned how to really roll with the punches. We do not know what's going on a lot of the time.
Yes.
And that's something we'll discuss in this video as well. But it's about the journey, it's about the adventure, and that's part of why we wanted to come here. And it is definitely an adventure.
Definitely.
So, first up, we're going to talk about some of the good aspects of living in Japan. And this is absolutely not a comprehensive list. This is just some of the things that we have learnt over the last few months, and some of the things that have made an impression on us. So we've got a little list. It's not a script, but it is a little bit of a list to help us remember what we've really enjoyed about the good aspects of moving to Japan. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was how polite everyone is.
Yes.
It is amazing. Lots of people talk on the internet about Japanese people being super shy and they won't talk to you as a foreigner. Some people have talked about not being welcomed into shops. Not our experience at all. We have not experienced that. We often...
we sort of have experienced the shy people, but it's more they're afraid to approach us because they don't want to offend us. And we see people who might... Like we might be at a park or at a restaurant or something, and somebody sort of gives us the side eye for an hour or two, and then eventually works up the courage to come say hello. And sometimes we've built friendships out of it.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah.
But definitely we've not experienced rudeness from people in Japan. They are super polite. They are so willing to try and help you if they can. And that's been a really, really lovely experience. This politeness extends to driving as well, which doesn't really surprise me, but there is not a road rage issue. Like, I think I've heard horns beat maybe 3 times in the last 5 months.
I actually tried to explain the concept of road rage to a guy I worked with, and he had almost no English, so with that and my almost no Japanese, it was quite a difficult concept to get across. But he just could not get his head around the fact that road rage not only exists but is everywhere in Australia.
What we do find is that, you know, somebody will do something that in Australia would have fists raised, horns blaring, choice words thrown, and people just kind of sit there and wait. And when that person has moved out of the way of traffic just starts moving again. No one's day has been ruined by it. No one's day appears affected by it.
No, I think people are here, aside from just generally the manners and courtesy being worked into culture so heavily, I think also they've worked out that if this inconvenience adds 10 seconds to my journey, by the time I get to my destination, I'm less affected by that than I would be by the anger if I got angry at everything. They're just so much more chill about things like that. You know, it's this concept of what will be, I guess. You know, it's just part of the day, it's part of life. They don't let these things affect them in the same way as we might in Australia. Well, they've got a term, shogunai, which means can't be helped.
It can't be helped.
And it's vaguely similar to Australia's she'll be right, but it's more, well, I can't do anything to change it, so why should I let that affect me? Let's move on with our day.
It's interesting. All right, so another thing that we wanted to talk about, and we're not going to go into this too much because it deserves its own video, honestly. The food. Oh my gosh, the food.
Food in Japan is just so good.
It's so good. And high quality, fresh, and oh my goodness, I cannot even tell you how good karaage chicken is here. It is.
We absolutely love almost all Japanese food, and
it's a problem.
and it's so readily available. Like, restaurants are affordable most of the time. Food from supermarkets, it's amazing how much ready-made meals or how many what a range of ready-made meals you can get from supermarkets.
And we're not talking
affordable.
Frozen. We're talking freshly made on the day.
Yeah.
Sushi, noodles, rice, bentos, even sandwiches.
Yeah.
All sorts of things that are just
and
ready to go.
Even the sandwiches are good, and sandwiches are like $2 or $3. Like you can definitely eat lunch with a drink for under $5 every day and have something different every day for a year, and it's always good.
Yeah, an onigiri, so a little rice ball with some meat inside or fish inside, wrapped in a piece of seaweed, will set you back about 118 yen, which with the current Australian exchange rate,
$1.25, $1.30.
Yeah, I think about $1.30 is the most you'd pay for a little onigiri at a supermarket. And one onigiri will fill me on a day when I'm not feeling terribly hungry, and yeah, if you're not feeling like that's quite enough, you can grab a skewer of chicken that's been grilled or something for about 100 yen, and that'll definitely top you up. Even soft drinks or fruit juices out of the fridge at the supermarket.
They're about $1.
They're about $1.
Yeah.
It's weird for us. And that back that up with convenience stores.
Yeah.
Convenience stores here in Japan are just next level. We are so used to the idea of a convenience store being inconveniently expensive.
Yeah.
So that you don't actually go to a convenience store unless you're desperate. But here it's just the normal thing. Yeah. A convenience store is convenient.
Yeah. Look at the price of things at convenience stores. Like in Australia, you're so used to that if you go to one of your major supermarkets, you're going to pay, let's say $1.50 for something. That same thing at like a corner store or a convenience store or whatever is going to be maybe $2, $3, $4.
Yeah.
Because they're taking advantage of your either lack of time or your lack of desire to go for a longer drive to a bigger supermarket.
Absolutely.
Whereas here, if it's $1.50 at a supermarket, it might be $1.55.
It's really not that big
probably
a deal.
dearer, but it's not dearer enough that you wouldn't buy something at a convenience.
Right. So you can
but then
get,
there's all the other stuff they do.
Yeah, you can get your bottle of, let's use Coke because it's universal. Okay, so a bottle of Coke in a service station in Australia, about $4.50.
Like a
like
500
a 600 mil or whatever. Is that right?
It's been a while since I've bought one, but let's say $6.
Tell us in the comments how much is a bottle of Coke.
What's a bottle of Coke in Australia these days?
At a servo, okay? And I'd really be interested to hear about what it would be like in the US or the UK as well, because I don't know. But in Australia, about $4, $4.50 is what I remember at a servo. And oftentimes they'll have a deal or something. If you buy 2 bottles, it'll be $7 or something, which actually just gets you to spend more money.
Yeah.
But here in Japan, if you go into a supermarket, you can get a bottle of Coke, like one of those bottles of Coke, and it'll be about $1.70.
Oh yeah,
Coke's more expensive.
Coke is more expensive.
But
I forget this because I don't buy it. There's so many other things here that I enjoy.
I just looking at all the
Coke.
prices a lot of the time. But about $1.60, $1.70. Let's say, but you go into a convenience store, you might pay about $1.90, but it's cold, it's ready to go, and they'll hand you a straw and thank you for shopping there.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's a plastic straw too, so sorry turtles, but I really do hate my straws falling apart when I'm halfway through drinking.
I hate paper straws. I love turtles, but I hate paper straws.
Same. Sorry turtles. So yes, food is amazing. Convenience stores.
Actually, we should maybe, on that note of plastic, Japan has so much single-use plastic, and I recognise that that's a bit of an issue, but Japan basically doesn't have littering, and
that's a good thing.
They do have really solid recycling.
Yeah, they really do. So, and that's something we're going to talk about a little bit later, the recycling aspect of that. But yeah, the good, definitely, there is very little litter around the place. It's a very clean country. There's not bins everywhere. People just will take their rubbish with them. They show responsibility.
Yeah.
Goodness.
And that probably whittles down into, like, if you imagine how much we pay for council rates and that kind of thing, and then the council pays people to go and clean up the gardens that we then litter. And even if we don't litter, if we just put it into a bin, but we've got to pay somebody to empty that bin. Well, if there's no bin and we take that rubbish home and deal with it ourselves, it's a little bit inconvenient, but it's probably saving us money on council rates.
Who knows? The next thing I want to discuss is the low crime rate.
Yeah.
So in Japan, it is so safe. I cannot tell you how amazing it is to, as a woman, feel completely safe, even in the middle of Tokyo, almost midnight, walking along the streets in a party district on my own, feeling completely safe.
Yeah.
With crowds of people around me. There is basically no crime.
Sort of, yeah. There's very little serious crime here in Japan. There's a couple of things like push bikes and umbrellas go missing sometimes, so you definitely need to lock up your umbrella, which seems really weird for us Aussies.
So weird.
But you can absolutely leave your car running when you go into the convenience to grab something, which is great in hot or cold weather.
So much better, yeah. We've talked about the convenience store a little bit,
Yep.
but we're also going to talk about some of the other amazing things that you can do in a convenience store.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about the food that you can just go in and grab a hot lunch, and also we didn't mention, they will heat it up for you in their little microwaves, and it's just so good.
Yeah, if you get yourself some noodles out of the fridge, they'll say to you, "Would you like that heated up?" And you go, "Yes, please," and they'll heat it up for you and hand it to you.
They'll give you a fork or a
chopsticks.
Thank you. Lost the English word there for a second. They'll give you chopsticks. They'll give you a little hand wipe.
Yeah.
And they'll pop it in a little bag for you. It's a full service situation there.
Yeah. And here's a good one with the convenience with the food. If you buy hot food ready to eat, almost always it's easy to open. There's some sort of way. I love it when you get a piece of chicken. The chicken at convenience stores is amazing.
Oh, Fami Chicky.
You grab it, you just pull like that, and the top half of the paper comes off.
Yes.
And you can eat it holding it with the paper.
Yeah.
No greasy fingers.
They're all about the clean fingers. Yeah. But some of the other things that convenience stores offer as a service are paying your bills. You can walk in there with your electricity bill or your water bill, and you can hand over that bill, and they will key it in and take your money. So you don't need to do your online stuff. Well, you can't do online stuff.
Online bills is a bit inconvenient,
but
the fact that we live in a country where you can't do online, having a place you can do that, and the fact that you can do them all in one place, you don't need to go to the power company and then to the water company, whatever.
So convenient.
Yeah.
They also have kiosks there where you can actually sign up for insurance for your bicycle or your car.
Yep.
They have a multifunction machine where you can do copying, scanning, all of that sort of thing as well. You can print photographs. You can also, if you've had to order a specific
like an online
document or something, you can go to that convenience store, key in your net code, and it will print from that machine as well. So that is really a godsend.
And it's cheap.
Yeah, it's
like
so
10 cents a copy.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. You don't need to have a printer at home because you can do all that there. So that is really great. All right, let's move on to the bad. And now this isn't bad as in, oh, Japan is bad. And let me preface this by saying none of this is a deal breaker for us.
Yeah.
Some of these are just things that have been difficult for us as foreigners, getting to know a new culture.
Yeah.
So first of all, obviously, language barrier.
Yeah. The language barrier is a bigger issue for me. I'm studying hard and my Japanese is coming along, but it still isn't at conversation level. Mandy's language is pretty good and it's definitely at conversation level. What you very quickly discover if you move to another country with another language is it's amazing how quickly your language runs out when you're doing things like buying and registering a car, insuring a bicycle, buying any sort of insurances or...
filling in hospital documents for your son.
Yeah. We've got another video coming up about our son's trip to a hospital, but stand by for that.
Watch out for that one.
But yeah, all of these things that, what is the word for that? It's not come up in my introductory Japanese lessons.
All right. The next thing that has been bad for us is the paperwork.
Yeah.
So in Australia, a lot of things have moved to online, and it's super convenient because you fill in the form online, it immediately emails the details to you. You can check through. The next thing I want to talk about, which we have not enjoyed, is the paperwork side of things. So we are really used to, in Australia, having a lot of digital access to paperwork.
Yep.
So we can go online and submit our paperwork, have an email verification to say that it's all done. It's all in one place. We can't lose it. We can't lose it in piles of paperwork. Just not a thing here in Japan. Everything is paper.
Yep.
Everything.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of paper, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's sometimes weird how many pieces of paper you need to fill out for one thing.
Right.
And sometimes you need to write your name on it 5 times.
So one of the things that we find is a problem when we're filling out paperwork is that you have to fill out your paperwork using your English name, and then you have to translate it into Japanese characters. That's so that they actually know how to say it.
Yep.
And they don't have middle names for starters. And when they write their names in kanji and then in the phonetic sounds, it only takes up a few boxes.
Yeah.
Us foreigners, we have long names that don't translate into Japanese well, and often there just aren't enough boxes for the names to actually fit in. And then you've got issues because you cannot submit it unless your full name is written on it, but you can't go over the lines. The rules.
Yeah.
There's so many rules. Yeah, so paperwork's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
Yeah, and there's just so much of it. And we've got a cupboard full of paperwork. And one of the things that you don't consider as a foreigner is that you need to translate every single thing on a piece of paper, and that can be really time consuming and incorrect.
Yeah.
But also, we've got a stack of papers that if Mandy says to me, hey, I need you to go and grab the whatever, I spend an hour looking through 5 pieces of paper because I don't know which one it is.
Absolutely. So in your own language, you can flip through paper, and you're so good at reading quickly that you can just glance, and you can recognize key words very, very fast. When you're working in your second language, and for us, not necessarily well in your second language, you really need to slow that process down and read each character, and that is tedious.
Yeah.
Let's go with tedious.
Yeah.
There are a number of things to do with the paperwork that are also hard. Like there's a thing called a My Number card, which is basically like a social security number, and you need to keep that super, super safe. They want you to make a password, but you're probably never going to use the password, and they want it to be 10 digits long and have numbers and letters, but they don't want it to be a word. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to write it down.
And you're not allowed to write it down, but when you go in once a year to use it, you need to have remembered exactly what it was that you made up randomly on the spot a year ago.
Yeah, when your brain was already full of 2 languages and really not knowing what's going on. Okay, next thing that has been a little bit of a thing for us, toll roads.
Yeah. So toll roads use a thing here that's called an ETC card. It's effectively a credit card that goes into a little computer thing that has a slot that is hardwired to your car. That unit is registered to your car and to you as the owner, and the credit card is either owned by you or hired by you from someone else. And when you put it in your car, it works like the e-toll beepers in Australia. Once you have it,
convenient.
Once you have it, super convenient. It's cheaper than paying cash at the toll booths, and generally quicker as you just fly through the booth at about 20k an hour. You don't need to stop, bumble through for some change, put it in, reach, all that. Where it's become a real drama for us is there are some places where you have to have an ETC card. You cannot just stop and pay cash, and sometimes that's just inconvenient. It means you've got to go a bit further up the road or whatever.
Yep.
There was a time where it was really important to us that we went from this town to this town and we couldn't use the toll road, so it added 2 hours to our journey simply because we didn't have an ETC card.
Because we had to find an exit from the toll road that had a booth where you could pay cash.
Yeah.
And this was to do with the hospital visit, which we'll discuss in another video.
Yeah.
But you can imagine if your son's in a hospital, you really don't want to be travelling an extra 2 hours on a day that's already stressful.
And I would have happily paid the toll.
Well, I would have paid double.
Yeah, we would have happily paid the toll, but we physically couldn't because we didn't yet have an ETC card. It can be a huge saving if you're going from, for example, Tokyo to Osaka, like we've done recently.
Yes.
It costs about $200 to use the toll road, but it halves the 14-hour journey down to a 7-hour journey, and to me that's $200 well spent.
However,
from Minami-Soma to Sendai, it's something like $20, and it saves about 5 or 10 minutes.
I don't understand how that works out personally, but
yeah.
I guess that's something that you've just got to consider when you're about to use a toll road. Is it worth it?
Yeah. I plan our trips and I decide, is it worth it or not?
Yeah.
Sometimes it definitely is. Sometimes it definitely isn't.
If you don't know, don't wing it, basically.
Yeah. Because it can cost you a lot of money.
It can, absolutely. I mean, the highways are wonderful. They're beautifully maintained. They are wide. You can travel at pace without any dramas. The traffic is very, very considerate in the same way as we were talking earlier about people would, if they see you moving faster than them, they will just move over and get out of your way so you don't have to change your speed, which is unheard of in Australia.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So there's lots of good things about using the toll road, but the tolls can get expensive and a little confusing. Okay, the last thing on our bad list is what we have discovered here on a seaside town, the swimming hours.
Yeah.
So weird.
It's kind of weird thing that, so this summer has been absolutely brutal, worse than our summers in Australia. I've been told that this is the worst summer that they've experienced in this area for many years. But there are signs up saying you cannot swim at the beach unless the beach is open with lifeguards.
Yep.
But the lifeguards are there from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m.
Which is just weird because
the sun's up from 6 until 7.
And the sun is way too hot to be out there. I mean, I would just burn to a crisp in no time flat. And the sun doesn't lose most of its heat until about 5:30, 6 p.m. So that's the time I want to go swimming, when the sun's not so hot and it's still nice and bright outside.
Because we've got Aussie kids who have grown up swimming in swimming pools and in the beach, and they're very confident and capable swimmers, we felt very comfortable, and so we've just gone outside of swimming hours because I'd far rather that than skin cancer.
But we have been keeping a close eye on them, just in case you're worried. And we have made sure that we are not causing a stir with people around us.
There are others that do it, locals that
we're not
do it
the
as
only
well,
ones.
but it's certainly less busy when the beach is closed, and that's fair enough. And
we as Australians have grown up with the idea of 10 till 3, avoid UV, right? It doesn't seem to be a thing here. As soon as it's midday, everyone's in the water. I don't understand it, but sure, why not? All right, let's move on to the weird. This is the fun area. These things are not necessarily good or bad. They're things that we've just kind of scratched our head over.
Yeah, Japan does weird well.
So, first one, this is mixed really, the indoor shoes. So, Japan is a shoes off inside society.
Yes.
And that comes from a long history of the roads being dirt and your feet being dirty, your shoes being dirty outside, and then when you come inside, you leave your shoes in the entranceway, the genkan, and you step up into the house, which is the clean area of the house. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So this is carried on because Japan has just thousands of years of history.
Yes.
And it has just kept going. However,
so typically houses in Japan, even a lot of more traditional businesses, the floor is built up about a foot off the ground, and you can imagine they walk in, kick off their muddy or snowy boots, and then walk around the house in socks, or the business in socks. There are still definitely restaurants and other businesses that you'll go to where you are expected to take your shoes off, and it's not a question, it's you will take your shoes off.
Take your shoes off.
And so, two things I find really interesting about this. One is when you're in a restaurant or a business like this, when you go to the toilet, there will be toilet slippers. So these are communal slippers that are there ready for you to slip on and go to the toilet. And I guess that's from traditionally you walk outside of the home or whatever, and you go to the outside toilet. And also you may not want to walk on the toilet floor in your socks. The other one I find particularly weird, I've noticed at a few of the schools, if there's like a parents' day or something, you'll go to the school, all of the parents will go into the school gym, everyone will take off their shoes, they'll put on their inside shoes, so you've got to bring your own inside shoes. You put on your inside shoes, you then walk outside of the hall, you walk through the gravel into the school, and you enter in your inside shoes that you've just walked in the gravel. it's one of these weird inconsistencies that I get the purpose behind it, but why are we walking outside with our inside shoes on? I don't understand.
So as a teacher in a school, I have a pair of shoes that lives in my locker at school. These are just a pair of nice, comfortable sneakers that I can stand in all day, but they have never been worn outside. Okay, so these are my inside shoes. I go to work in my normal shoes. I take them off as soon as I get there, put them in my locker, put on my inside shoes, and I walk around in my inside shoes all day. Every teacher has at least one pair of inside shoes. I've noticed that some teachers that do a lot of work in the gym, they will have some inside shoes for in the classroom, and they have inside shoes for the gym as well. Interesting. But all of the students also have inside shoes as well, and they're all identical. So that's a really fun thing. But I had my nephew come and stay with us, g'day, and he came to visit our school. His feet didn't fit in the guest slippers because yay for big Australian feet. So he was tripping over himself trying to keep these slippers on his feet, and decided to just carry his slippers and wear his socks. Oh my goodness, the vice principal was horrified. He really was quite upset that that my nephew could not wear these shoes. So inside shoes is definitely a thing, and walking around in socks is considered dirty. Yikes. All right, another weird thing while driving around, again, lots of driving things. One, narrow roads, really narrow roads, and no through road signs.
The no through road signs, it gets a bit frustrating, because,
but especially when it's combined with the narrow road.
Because sometimes you're just trying to find your way somewhere, and you turn down a little narrow road, and it looks like it might be somebody's driveway. It also looks like it might be a road. It's a bit hard to tell here in Japan sometimes. And then you pop out, and oh no, this is where everyone goes. You realise that you're following 15 cars down this tiny little narrow road. But then other times you turn down a road that's bigger than that, and you follow it to the end and you take a turn. And I did this in Tokyo recently, where I went into a road and it turned, and I got to the end, and not only was it a no-through road that wasn't signed, but there's nowhere to turn around. So I then had to reverse out, and at one point I actually had the awkward issue of not hitting a Bentley or a Mercedes as I reversed between them. And the narrow roads thing, but it works well because of the politeness of drivers. Two cars coming towards each other, one of them will recognise that there's a space and pull into it, and the other car gets to go past. And sometimes I'm the guy who pulls over, and sometimes I'm the guy who gets to go past. You just sort of take it in turns, and it just consideration for others wins out there.
Okay. Farms. There are farms everywhere, and I mean, we are in a rural area, but even in cities, there are just, it doesn't seem to be zoning. So industrial, residential, agricultural, it's all just mixed in together, and it's quite fun. But it is confusing for somebody who's very used to, this is where the industry is, and this is where the residency is, and this is, so it is a little bit of a, oh, well, that's different.
But I think it works well, though.
I mean, it's fun. All right. Oh, tradies.
So this one really surprised us, particularly when we moved here into a house. So moving into a house has meant we've had a lot of tradies come. The house needed small amounts of repair, but also things like setting up gas and electricity and all those things. We've had a lot of people, and even like Neighbourhood Watch or whatever they're called, have shown up. And what I find really weird, many of them will ring the doorbell, but not all of them will. What they will all do is open the front door, poke their head in.
Step into the Genkan.
Step into the Genkan, poke their head in, and call out. And
hello.
Quite polite things, basically, excuse me, hello, is anybody home? And then you come and there is somebody standing in your house. Now, they don't walk through the house. They certainly aren't going to help themselves to things.
But they absolutely open the door and step into your space.
And because it's Japan, it's not an unsafe thing. They aren't here to rob you or anything like that.
It's also a completely acceptable thing from their culture. Like, this is, like, the Genkan is that communal space, I guess. Whereas for us as Australians, you opened my door.
The door is a barrier.
No. Yeah, weird. The announcement cars.
Yeah.
So there's these cool cars that get around with big megaphone looking speakers on top. And every now and then they'll just be loudly blaring some unintelligible Japanese.
Yep.
And I don't know what they're saying. I'm sure it's important.
We have heard that it can be anything from you should probably wear a seatbelt to a tsunami warning.
Yeah.
And obviously one of those requires a lot of attention from us, one of them not so much. But how do we know? And so we just ignore them all.
Well, we don't exactly ignore them all. What we do is we look around and see if anyone else is running. And if everyone else...
And so far nobody has been.
No. You know, it's like the T-shirt that you often saw in the 90s. I'm a bomb technician. If you see me running, try to keep up. That's kind of the vibe we go with when it comes to these cars. You know, if no one else is reacting, well, we'll just go with it.
Yeah.
All right. The opening hours of shops is weird. So nothing opens before 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Like nothing. And for somebody who, let's face it, I can be pretty disorganized, and sometimes I need to rush to the shop in the morning before work or whatever. So I'm very, very grateful for shops that open at 8 in Australia. Yes. No, if you need to go to the supermarket, you're not going there before 10 a.m.
Yeah.
And they shut later, which is nice.
Yeah.
And some shops shut weirdly late.
Yeah, there's a department store in Fukushima that doesn't open until 10 a.m. but is open until 2 a.m.
Yes.
2
a.m.
I'm really curious at the number of customers that need stuff at 1 a.m. but do not need it at 9 a.m.
It's very strange to me.
Yeah.
Fukushima is not a particularly nightlifey city either. Like, I mean, it has a bit of nightlife, but it's not Tokyo. So I can't imagine that there's too many people going shopping at 1 a.m.
Maybe I need to go there at 1 a.m. and see who's there.
Yes, we totally should.
20 other foreigners wondering why this is open.
Okay, drugstores.
Yeah.
Drugstores. Now, in Australia, we have chemists and pharmacies, and they're kind of the same thing. Drugstores in Japan are basically a chemist type thing. So they sell you first aid gear, gift stuff, perfumes, makeup,
all that sort of stuff. All
vitamins.
All the extras that the big chain chemists
all
do.
the shelf stuff.
Yeah.
But they will not fill your prescription. You have to go to a separate place for that.
Yeah.
And also, your drugstores will sell groceries and alcohol and
ice creams.
Yep. It's a very, very strange mix.
Which is exactly the same as hardware stores.
Yes.
So you can also buy your beer the same place you buy Circular Saw.
Yeah.
Which I think is just good planning.
Well, we'll debate that later. Okay. The last thing that I want to talk about that probably deserves its own video as well, but it might just